huge congrats on this. I literally binged this in a day. It's amazing. I feel like I can already tell the bits that they're going to be obsessed with. Do you know what I mean? It's just so good. Congratulations.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. Thank you.
But people are calling Rhiannon the female Patrick Bateman. Obviously, you had the books to kind of like go off as inspo. But was there any other people, like fictional or real, who kind of inspired Rhiannon a little bit?
I mean, the books really were our starting point. I mean, in terms of like on-screen, Dexter is the kind of obvious first, conversation point. For us, at least, I think mainly because when we talked about telling the story, we talked a lot about how we wanted to make the audience feel conflicted. We wanted them to sort of empathize and relate to her action. Oh, sorry, not her actions. Certainly not her actions. To her emotions. And really kind of root for her in a way, but then draw the line at what she does. Like, we should feel sort of morally pulled in different directions. I think Dexter does that so beautifully. There's not a ton of female serial killers on screen. Villanelle was on the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Someone I pulled from in terms of, I also think Jodie Comer is incredible and I adore her. But in terms of when Ranna starts to have a little bit more fun with it in the second half of the series, I just think Villanelle is such an incredible character. I watched that show so many times. I think I'm on my fourth run of it. I'm rewatching it again right now. I love it so much. She's just so playful and childish, and I think there is an element of that to Rhiannon too.
Yeah, you kind of like constantly like, I really don't want to root for you, but I
know, because you do, yeah. You start with Villanelle just like, gosh, she's a straight up psychopath. But by the end of it, you're just like, oh, I really want to give you a hug.
Yeah, for sure. And I've seen loads of people, and I'm sure it'll be the same discourse after this, really like praising you on the roles that you've chose in the last few years. So like Yellow Jackets and The Fallout and this, like no doubt will get loads of praise. How do you decide like what projects to take on?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I'm not really thinking about it in terms of strategy. I think I have just been really lucky. And I'm more just drawn to variety. I want to try new things all the time. I'm constantly craving that new experience kind of thing. Yeah, I read this and was like, well, that's terrifying, and I've never done it before. And I think it's like reading things I don't know if I can pull that off, and therefore I want to try it. I love a challenge.
Take a risk.
I really
Why
do.
not?
I'm like very, very competitive, and I just love a challenge, and I want to try new things all the time. And I have an incredible team who challenge me and push me, and if I don't want to do something, they accept that. They don't ever try and change my mind, and then just trusting them and collaborating with good people. I think I've just been really lucky.
Yeah, I'm so excited for like what you're going to do next, season 2 of this.
Aww,
fingers crossed.
so
but obviously in this, there's like a certain amount of rage in Rhiannon. How did you kind of get yourself in that really heightened state?
Oh, it's hard. It's tough, and it's quite physically exhausting. But gosh, I've never been so tired. And then,
really?
When I did this job, because it's physically demanding. It takes a lot out of you. Not the murders necessarily, the stabbing, but the rage, like holding tension in your body. It like, I swear I got kind of jacked. Like you're just constantly tensing.
Okay.
And there's like an element of like breath control, and there's tension in your jaw and in your face. And when you do that for 6 months, it's exhausting. You kind of want to have a lie down.
Yeah, this is coming from the girl who was dunked underwater for 10 hours and another thing. This was the worst.
I love a stunt. I love a challenge. Yeah. And then at the end of every job, I'm like, I just do like a nice chill comedy. Yeah. But no, I mean, it's really fun. There's also something very liberating. Once you get over the initial, obviously, like resistance to murder, which I hope everybody here has. If not, you should leave. There is an element of, it's very therapeutic, and you kind of, by the end of the show, I would really look forward to the moments where I just got to lose it, and I got to snap, and I got to explode, and whether that's like shouting at somebody or speaking her truth, finally getting to say what she's been holding on to for all of these years, the second half of the series, all of those moments, I really looked forward to it. It became kind of very freeing, very kind of
quite cathartic to just let
cathartic
rip.
Is the perfect word for it.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is.
I love that, and I love when she finds her voice as well. It's kind of like, that arc is amazing. I kind of saw an interesting discourse in the YouTube trailer comments, basically saying how this character is like invisible, but you're also like so pretty, and everyone was saying like, it's really nice, but everyone's saying, oh, maybe she's too pretty to be invisible, and we've kind of seen the same with like Margot Robbie and Wuthering Heights, like, oh, maybe she's too attractive for this role. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Watch the show. I would not say that. I mean, thank you, very kind. I would not say that I look very pretty in that show. I mean, we paid a lot of attention to making her look on the outside how she felt on the inside. I don't think it's about being attractive at all. Actually, I think it's almost an energy thing. It's a body confidence. It's how you dress. I mean, I had a very clear image of what Rihanna was going to look like from the get-go, and we found ways, I think, to show that. You know, finding a hair color that would kind of wash you out. You know, using a sort of a lighter foundation that would wash you out. You know, accentuating the bags under the eyes, not wearing any makeup, and then as the show progresses and she gets a bit more confidence and she starts to feel seen and she gets high off these murders and feels power of killing. You know, we used a warmer foundation colour and her hair smoothed out a little bit and we got a bit of blush and things that just should subconsciously influence the way you perceive the character, you know, unfortunately as she becomes more quote unquote attractive throughout the show. But it's not really that. It's about the way she holds herself. It's about when she walks into the room with her chin up and her shoulders back and she speaks in a loud, clear voice and she looks people in the eye and she's not afraid and she says what she wants. Like the world will respond to you differently depending on how you feel about yourself and the way you interact with it. And I think those things, I don't know. It's we'll see. We'll see if it translates. But definitely had that conversation many times when in pre-production.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it worked brilliantly, so
But
I
also,
just think it's an
thanks,
interesting...
I'll take it. You think I'm too pretty?
Too attractive?
Fine.
Great, yeah, I'll
Sure.
take it. Thank you so much for chatting with me. It's
Thank
such
you.
a pleasure. I
Thank
think
you
it's
so
going to be really well
much.
received,
Oh,
so
thank you so much.
How are you?
Oh, great. I like your top.
Oh, thank you. It's getting a lot of compliments
It's giving
today.
rave.
Well, yeah, I was at the drum shows this weekend and I'm like still like, it's like a 2-day thing, so I'm not doing it. Anyways, we'll
Jealous,
start on the show.
very jealous.
But on my hangover, I got to binge watch this show, which, I mean, what a pleasure. And you were amazing in it. It was so
Thank you,
good.
Clodagh.
Julia's great. And I also feel like she's a little bit Selling Sunset inspired. Is there, like, she's glam. Is that like, was that factored in?
Yeah, I think that definitely was factored in. It's really fun because I looked at, this is in working with the costume designer, Joe. I found all these kind of like TikToks of these like British, but kind of Selling Sunset type estate agents, these kind of like British young estate agents who were like going around these mansions and they were in these cute little outfits. And I was like, I think Julia would be like that kind of estate agent.
I feel
I'm glad
like
you picked up
she'd
on
be
that.
the TikTok, like, come at me to this 200K. Like,
Oh my God, definitely.
she'd be all over it.
Yeah.
So she's obviously like the mean girl in this. Were there any other kind of fictional or real mean girls that kind of inspired your performance? I'm not like, give me the dirt on your childhood bully, but also...
There were a few different things. I think mainly I went to an all-girls school, which in the East End, so it was pretty tough going.
Yeah.
So I definitely drew on some experiences from that in terms of for Julia. And then also I really looked at kind of social media and these sort of women who had these kind of like perfect lives, but in a really kind of obsessive, kind of terrifying way. And where you sort of look and you feel kind of like bad about yourself.
Yeah.
And I felt like those women were kind of good inspiration for like Julia in terms of like what she's trying to kind of put fear in other people in terms of, because she's so got it together.
Yeah, and she's also kind of like trying to portray one thing when in reality everything's really different, which I do feel like we can all relate to on a certain level. Was that something intentional?
Yeah, definitely, because she has to be so perfect and kind of make other people feel bad, I think, because she's deflecting from obviously her own life, which isn't as amazing on the surface, under the surface. So yeah, I think that was my way into her as a character.
And who is your personal favourite, like, on-screen mean girl?
Oh my God. I mean, the classic is obviously Regina.
Yeah.
Regina.
Which, like, genuinely, I saw hints.
Maybe.
Yeah,
do you know
with,
what?
like,
I
the
didn't
posse
channel it, but I'm
and-
like, kind of.
Yeah.
It's giving Regina George.
And also how your friends are, like, slightly ditzy.
Yeah, bless Pidge. Such a good character. And they were amazing as well. The cast were, like, we had a lot of fun those days where we got to, there's that moment where we were in the nightclub and they put on Who Do You Think You Are, Spice Girls, and I think that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, there was no act dancing. It was just dancing.
We were enjoying. We went back in time.
Yeah, and I guess like building them relationships, like you guys seemed, well, it came across as though there was a lot of trust, especially between you and Ella Purnell. How did you build that between the two of you guys, that dynamic?
Yeah, well, I think it just came from like we talked a lot about the characters, like with the director, and obviously like Ella was so involved even before I came on, you know, she's kind of producing it as well. And I remember we had a lot of time in the room where we just really talked and got under the skin of like who those characters were. And I think ultimately they could have been friends back in the day. Like if things had gone really differently, I think maybe they would have liked each other. Maybe Julia does her makeup and, you know, sort of Rhiannon would have given her something too and made her look at the world a bit differently. So I think that was kind of the basis of it, that, you know, we could really push those like moments because we knew like under the surface, like it wasn't really about the other person. It's kind of maybe about what society that surrounds it, which is why they've ended up in this kind of warped environment.
And like it gets pretty heated. I feel like I'm gonna have to put like a spoiler on screen now. But like you guys get physical. I'm like, let's get into it now.
Yeah.
But like, what was that like to film?
I mean, that was so much fun.
Yeah.
I think Ella's very up for that kind of stuff. You know, she's great at being, you know, super physical and doing stunts. That was kind of, I think maybe my second time really like doing any kind of stunt work and like doing a fight scene. So it was good fun. Like, I think we were both really up for it. So it was like, it's kind of like a routine when you get
like
into it with stunt. Yeah, kind of. So that was maybe one of my favourite days on set.
Was there any like accidental like?
Fortunately not.
Okay, good.
Fortunately not. But you know, we both go for it. You can see sort of in the episode that we're like, you know, we're really like raring to go.
And I feel like the majority of the time when we see your character, you're kind of in this like pretty grim environment. Was it like equally as grim to film as it looked?
A little bit.
Not gonna lie. It was the pee bucket. I was
like a little bit. But do you know what? That is kind of what I wanted. Like I did say to Ella, like the director, that I wasn't getting up so much between takes or whatever. I just kind of would stay tied to the pole because I just kind of wanted to be in it and not keep breaking away from, like, I'm in a basement, I've been sat in the dark for hours. So I really wanted to like stay in that kind of headspace. And I think also it was helpful for then me and like Ella to kind of have that little bit of distance where she would come in to sort of the basement and I would genuinely be like, oh God, I've been like sat here. So you could, you know, use that. So yeah, and I think again, that probably comes from the sort of trust in knowing you can kind of do that.
Yeah, just sit for a bit.
Yeah.
Amazing. I've been told to wrap up, but thank you so much.
Clodagh.
I had loads more fun questions, but it's so nice